Ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carly Seuss. Yes, like Dr. Seuss. Today, I would like to argue to you that the rate of global warming will increase if humans limit their use of fossil fuels. I will do that first by explaining that replacing fossil fuels with alternate energies will reduce the rate of global warming, and secondly, by explaining that fossil fuel use for transportation can be reduced. Before I get to my first point, I want to explain a few terms and concepts. So, fossil fuels are basically natural fuels found underground that are formed from the remains of dead organisms millions of years old, hence the name fossil fuels. These fuels can include many commonly known substances such as coal, oil, gasoline, diesel, and natural gas. When these fossil fuels are burned to create energy, emissions called greenhouse gases are the result. Greenhouse gases trap excess energy within Earth's atmosphere, which results in the climate change. This climate change can have many negative effects, including rising tides, more destructive hurricanes, and more damaging wildfire seasons, which I'm pretty sure we don't want in California. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, states that emissions of CO2 from fossil fuel combustion and industrial processes contributed about 78% of the total greenhouse gas emissions increase from 1970 to 2010, with a similar percentage contribution of increase during the period of 2000 to 2010. This rate of CO2 that is increasing is obviously showing that the rate of global warming is increasing. My first claim is that replacing fossil fuels with alternative sources of energy will reduce the rate of global warming. Currently, a majority of energy generation is due to the burning of fossil fuels. This major producer of greenhouse gases that contributes to our climate change. By switching energy sources from those that burn fossil fuels such as oil and coal to other so-called CO2-free energies, the rate of global warming will slow down. Jean-Marc Jancovici, an energy and climate expert, states that although a primary energy source does not free any CO2 or greenhouse gases, the construction of the device that exploits it might have freed some. So although there are no true CO2-free energy sources, there are cleaner energies that emit significantly lower amounts of CO2 and other greenhouse gases. These methods include the obvious wind and solar power, and other sources like hydro and geothermal power. The U.S. Energy Information Administration claims that in 2017, 4.015 trillion kilowatt hours of energy were generated at utility-scale facilities in the United States. 63% of this energy generation was from fossil fuels like coal or petroleum, but only 17% was from renewable energy sources. The increasing number of renewable energy sources is possible, it just hasn't been done yet. The IRENA, also known as the Intergovernmental Renewable Energy Agency, says that 90% of energy CO2 reduction can be achieved through the expansion of renewable energy and improving of energy efficiency. By switching these energy sources to well-known wind or solar, or the ever-growing geothermal or hydro energies, and leaving fossil fuel burning behind, global warming will slow. My second claim is that fossil fuel use in transportation can be significantly reduced. A large part of carbon dioxide emissions is from the transportation industry. This includes cars, trucks, cargo ships, all using oil and diesel or natural gas. There are many ways that one can reduce their fossil fuel emissions from travel. One is to drive an electric car. When concerning electric vehicles, the obvious thought is that electrical vehicles do not burn the fossil fuels that other cars do. But another topic that is not often brought up is the topic of manufacturing these cars. Yoann Lepetit, an e-mobility expert with the Brussels-based campaign group Transport and Environment, says manufacturing an electric vehicle today is more energy intensive than manufacturing a conventionally fueled car. However, the Union of Concerned Scientists states that nationwide EVs charged from electricity grid produce lower global warming emissions than average compact gasoline-powered vehicle, even when that electricity is produced by primarily in regions with the dirtiest electricity grids. This shows that while it does take more energy to build the electric vehicle, they still produce reduced emission of carbon dioxide compared to the other conventionally fueled vehicles. Another option is a natural gas vehicle. Although natural gas vehicles are not truly clean, they still produce greenhouse gases. They do produce lower rates of carbon dioxide. SoCalGas states that Natural gas vehicles can reduce emissions of carbon dioxide by as much as 30%, carbon monoxide by 85%, and carcinogenic particle emissions by 99%. This reduction of carbon dioxide, if applied to a large population, will reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, resulting in the reduced rate of global warming. Overall, if humans limit their use of fossil fuels, including using other sources of energy rather than fossil fuel burning, and using other means of transportation to reduce fossil fuel usage, the rate of global warming will decrease.
All right, Carly, the proposition's clearly identified. There is a preview. I did think that it got rushed a little bit, and since there are only 2 points, it seemed like it was, you skipped into it pretty quickly in order to get to some definitional issues. I'm not sure the definitional issues were quite as important as what the supporting structure was going to be. I think most people have a pretty good idea what fossil fuels are, but the main points of the speech needed to be, like I said, a little bit clearer at the beginning. You did signpost them clearly in the body of the speech, so it's relatively easy to follow. I didn't think that there was anything that was problematic there. And because you gave good explanations about how these points are related to each other, it's easy to follow your train of thought here. I do think that there needs to be a little bit more explanation about why you need to make this argument, because there are some suggestions that that we have been on a tipping point and we're past the tipping point, or that there's so much CO2 already in the atmosphere that there's not much chance that we can reverse this. Your argument seems mainly based on the notion that if we use less intensive energy that's going to produce CO2, then there'll be less CO2 in the atmosphere. That automatically means that there's going to be an alteration in climate change issues. I think that's the thing that needs to be developed a little bit more. So it feels like there's a point that's missing here. It's a presupposition, and I think it needs to be argued instead of just assumed. Like I said, I think you labeled the points very clearly. There's a lot of good evidence on the 2 points that you present, though. You qualify the evidence for the most part. You're consistent about citing sources, which I appreciated. I thought there was a good diversity of statistical information and testimony that you're supporting your points with. Presentation, I think you might want to do a little bit more talking to the audience. I know that there's a lot of data in your argument, so looking down seems to be natural, but you also want to talk to us a little bit more. That, I think, would enhance our willingness to listen to some of the arguments you're presenting. Thank you very much. I know it's tough.